Dr. Khoza. I don't want to read the whole introduction again. I want to jump into it in the interest of time. The first question I was asking you was your reaction to the outcome of the elections that we saw and the position we're in now.
We found it a bit disturbing, but one understands that things won't go that smoothly all the time. I want to believe that the entire nation was in a state of, bewilderment, perplexed and anxious, asking such questions as precisely what brought us to this painful juncture. What happened to the much acclaimed Rainbow Nation? What force or combination of forces is likely to lead us out of this morass, politically speaking? All of those questions were raised. And we in business also raised similar type questions, essentially because business thrives in an atmosphere of stability and does get jittery when the stability is disturbed and there's uncertainty. Uncertainty is one of the biggest enemies to business.
Yeah, it certainly is, and I think that's where we're at the moment, where businesses is sitting, waiting, and anxiously trying to see where we go. But as political leadership currently negotiates these government arrangements, what kind of leadership are you hoping for?
We're hoping for leadership that will be a leadership that is characterized by stewardship. It should be leadership that is at the service of the nation and puts the political economy first and foremost, puts people and the citizenry and the nation first, and de-emphasize personal gain or personal opportunity and do what is in the national interest.
Well, that's important, but I suppose everybody has a difference in terms of what the national interest actually looks like, because you have those on the one side that are saying, we want to make decisions that, the markets that are going to make that work really, really well, and that you'll have ratings agencies and people looking at us and saying, good decision, investments can keep on going. There are other people on the other side that are saying, but my life will continue the same way. I won't get jobs, I won't have an economy that's growing, I won't have any opportunities. So there are lots of different ways that this could go. So perhaps you want to take us into your confidence in terms of the priorities that the new government should be looking at.
I think the new government, given that there was no clear winner, the new government should actually seek to find common ground. Because as you correctly pointed out, there's polarization, most of it ideologically based. I think the new government should seek to depolarize and talk to people that they would otherwise not want to talk to, and find ways of depolarizing whatever might be polarizing us ideologically, because ideology typically is emotionally charged beliefs. And I would suggest that the various forces that are beginning to seek some rapprochement should drop the various isms, whether it's socialism or communism or whatever else ism there is, and opt for what is pragmatic, that which would work for the greater good. And I believe by talking to each other, they'll find each other. In a situation like this, I think even those that are in extremities must understand that when challenges of this nature pose themselves, they should actually be even prepared to talk to sworn adversaries, because it is by talking to each other that you find each other. And they'll be surprised to find that, in fact, there's a lot of common ground, there's a lot of commonality of purpose, because as a nation, we are in pursuit of that which is secure, that which is sustainable, that which is stable, that which is not going to frighten foreign direct investment, that which is not going to cause talent flight. All of these are commonalities that I believe we can actually converge around. And whatever differences separate us, we can then begin to address. And I believe we'll find that we'll surprise ourselves as to how much common ground there is among South Africans.
I'm quite intrigued by some words that Moletti Mbeki was quoted as saying. It's in this morning's Citizen newspaper. And he said quite an interesting one. He said, to quote, "The election was not a watershed election if we use the criterion of the ANC that lost its majority." He goes into a lot of details and he brings up a lot of issues like BEE, for instance. He goes and talks about the new government must scrap all black economic empowerment legislation as it leads to corruption and inefficiency and spend less on the public service. That's just one of the ideas that he brought up. And, you know, talking, this needs to change. And we need to work together with people that are going to change it because things were not necessarily working under the current leadership. Would you agree with some of the words that have been uttered?
Well, by and large, yes. But for any one of us to say that black economic empowerment should be jettisoned for holas bolas, I wouldn't agree with that, because that actually is ignoring the history of this country. Things are still very, very skewed in this country, and corrective action needs to be taken. And that corrective action need not necessarily be seen as reverse discrimination or whatever other arguments people tend to advance. But to say that do away with whatever corrective action needs to be done, I think is to ignore reality. Yeah. And I don't believe we can actually address the challenges of our day by ignoring the skewed nature of the reality of the skewed nature of our political economy.
Yeah.
There is no question that historically things disadvantage certain sections of our population, and that needs to be addressed. Whether you're talking economically or you're talking socially in terms of residents, or you're talking about addressing things as a nation and not as sections of the nation, we have to come up with a modus operandi that may actually do away with whatever flaws there may have been where black economic empowerment was concerned, and take the necessary corrective action. You cannot continue to have a nation as skewed as ours and say, no, let's begin to live as if things were normal historically, as if things are normal currently.
Indeed. Finally, Dr. Khoza, I've had to skip past all of the questions I wanted to ask you because of timing. But very quickly, you've described South Africans as very bewildered and anxious. It's a feeling that I'm seeing everywhere at the moment. What do you mean by that, and is it warranted? Should we be a bit worried as to where we may be going?
I think it's partially warranted, but I don't believe we should overreact, because it's not as though the institutional forms that underpin our democracy have collapsed, even though there are forces that are beginning to threaten to do away with our constitution and some of the elements that underpin that democracy, like the rule of law, like an independent judiciary. I think those forces are on the fringes. Mainstream South Africa would adhere to and respect constitutional governance as opposed to parliamentary governance, as it were. So some of the noises that are made from the periphery might actually not be warranting as much attention and as much phobic reaction as we may be evidencing as a nation. I want to believe that South Africans of goodwill will be able to coalesce and good will prevail over evil.
All right, we have to leave it there, but I think sobering words to leave it on there. Dr. Reuel Khoza, businessman and author, calling for political parties to prioritize common good for the country and its people.